with a legacy of excellence. The voice of the industry, representing the interests of 25,000 businesses of all sizes, sectors, and regions. Empowering trade through advocacy, solution, and standard setting. Opening new avenues for unprecedented growth. Laying the foundation for an industrial transformation in the state of Telangana. Now, poised for the next century and beyond. The Federation of Telangana Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FTCCI. Together, let's rewrite the vision for a progressive future.
Thank you so much. I now invite our President, Mr. Bhaskar Reddy, for his welcome address.
Thank you very much, Kathy. After a technical glitch. Sri Professor K. Purushotham Reddy Garu, Environmentalist Professor at Osmania University. Sri B.V.Subba Garu, Eminent Environmentalist. Sri Anil Agarwal and Meela Jaydev, my colleagues. Sri Narayan Reddy Garu, Chair FTCCI Environment Committee, Managing Committee members, past presidents. Sri G.B.K. Rao Garu and the various members of the committee and all the MC members and presidents and ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. On behalf of Federation of Telangana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I extend a warm welcome to this webinar. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all today. Today's webinar on forthcoming 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the parties. This is called, I believe, COP26. Now it is like all the eminent environmentalists are already present to give their views on the COP26. What I just gathered is this 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP26. So I think it's a Glasgow conference at the United Nations. It is scheduled to be held in Scotland in the United Kingdom, I believe.
Yeah.
So the Paris Agreement is, as we all read, it's a landmark in multilateral climate change process, because a binding agreement brings all the nations into a common cause to undertake our ambitious efforts to combat the climate change and adopt its effects, I believe. So this is the brief I heard and I read. So, but to achieve this long-term temperature goal, it is important that all countries should aim to reach this global peaking of the greenhouse gas emissions to achieve a climate neutral world by maybe mid of this century. So India welcomed the UK COP26 presidency and 5 key initiatives on sustainable land use, this energy transition and low emission of a vehicle and maybe climate finance and adaptation. So India was also hoping to strengthen this global climate initiatives, including the International Solar Alliance, Coalition Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, Leadership Group for Transition, and so on and so forth. So I think this collaborative efforts across businesses, governments, and society are needed to reduce this devastating effect of the climate change. So sustainable transformation should be aimed for a better future of our planet while we are strengthening the business performances also. It's a catch 26 situation. Like on one hand, we need to perform in our all businesses, and other end, we need to be balancing the environmental damage without hurting the society. So a very delicate balance has to be played, and I'm sure this webinar will bring out a lot of suggestions and insights in this COP20 on the eve of this COP26 conference. So I wish very healthy deliberations and views, and particularly Purushotham Reddy is a very eminent environmentalist. I hope it will be very meaningful interaction. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish this webinar all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Narayan Reddy, Chair, FTCCI Environment Committee, to please introduce the speakers. Mute.
Ankita, I'm unable to see him online.
Yes, ma'am, he is joining. I mean, like little bit internet connections, poor internet connections, he is joining.
He has some technical problems, maybe.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah, good evening to one and all. Actually, I mean, Narayan Reddy sir is unable to rejoin, so he said me to go ahead with introducing the speakers. Good evening to one and all. I welcome everyone and acknowledge the valued presence of the dignitaries. It is actually my pleasure to introduce Professor K. Purushotham Reddy and Mr. B.V.Subba Rao Garu. Professor K. Purushotham Reddy, an eminent environmentalist, academician, and development of activist of India. He is a multifaceted personality with many successes, widely known as man of the masses and environment. Professor Reddy, long public life and activism spans across the environmental and development areas such as sustainable agriculture, environmental policies, and public policies on sustainable development and others. He had held various academic positions in Osmania University as a professor, head of the department, as a resource person from many universities and academic staff colleges in the state. He works with the aim of making environmental studies an integrated interdisciplinary stream which helps in making the environment, earth clean and green. He believes that true development is sustainable development which is inclusive of entire ecosystem. Thank you, sir, for joining us for today's webinar. Mr. B.V.Subba Rao is an eminent environmentalist. He has 40 years plus of consultation and project management experience in the areas of rural, urban, and industrial area, groundwater management, and climate change. He was a resource person at state and national human resources training and department institutes, rural development agencies like NIRD, Regional Center for Development and Environmental Studies. As a key resource person, he conducted international programs on environment, water, and climate change for international candidates at environment. He had participated in 12 international workshops and 5 Union Global Conferences. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. And I request Professor Purushotham Reddy to please take over the session.
Yeah, thank you so much. At the outset, I wish to pay my respects to the chairman of the Telangana Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Bhaskar Reddy, Madam Khyati, respected CEO, Dr. Narayan Reddy, the President of the Environment Committee of FTCCI, my friend Dr. Narayan Reddy, who is an industrialist and also environment friendly, Then my colleague, Dr. B.V.Subba Rao, distinguished elders like G.B. Rao garu, Eram Raju garu, andariki namaskaralu. Without taking much of your time, I wish to start the subject, but I know it's an interdisciplinary stream. I know all of you are from different backgrounds. So with this intention, I wish to make the subject very, very simple, easy, but at the same time, as comprehensive as possible. So normally, whenever we are discussing this particular subject in modern times, I'm not going into thousands of years of history, because that is also equally important. Particularly in India, the way we, the people, lived in the past on a sustainable basis, we call it as the people of India have always lived in a symbiotic relationship with their background ecosystems. Now, what is symbiosis? Symbiotic relationship means that wonderful relationship which exists between the mother and her child. People in India always live like that. But here again, I wish to point out, it is not just India. All the ancient continuing civilizations, they had lived in the past, and they had always respected the limits of nature. And they understood the value of every ecosystem. And that's how they organized development, respecting the possibilities and potentialities and taking advantage of it, organizing development, but without hurting the ecosystem. Okay, we come to Industrial Revolution, say about 250 years ago. With that, the capacity of the human Homo sapiens to cause damage to the planet Earth started. And we went in for coal mining, fossil fuels, and we started ripping the soil open. And for a period of time, slowly industrialization picked up. And most of the people were very happy in the beginning because it created a lot of activity, tremendous employment potential. And Homo sapiens throughout the world, they started thinking that it is the golden era of human beings. Everything was nice till around 1950. I would call it as we reached the end of the Second World War. For the first time, humanity got shock of its life when in 1945, the Americans dropped the bomb in Hiroshima on August 6th and 3 days later on August 9th in Nagasaki. Now that was definitely, in terms of technology, it was something like a crowning success, but the application was inhuman and it had to be condemned. The whole world condemned that very cruel, horrendous act of US over Japan. And what did Hiroshima and Nagasaki have to do? Innocent people, they were, I read so much about that dropping of the bomb. That was 8 o'clock in the morning and children were going to school and, the American warlords, they simply dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. You can imagine 300,000 people simply vaporized, simply gasified, that was the temperature generated. Okay. After that, humanity started thinking, and once again there was a very serious convergence in order to ensure that this planet will not witness another world war. And that gave rise to the birth of the United Nations organization. Really, friends, I, being a professor and having taught this particular subject for more than 5 decades, I consider humanity coming together, establishing a global organization. Actually, our first attempt was after the First World War, but that was like our first experiments, it failed. And second time, we took all precautions and we were also lucky. And United Nations has, it's now more than 75 years. It has been functioning extremely well. There are still so many things which we can desire, or we can always say UN should be more effective and all that, but UN will be as effective as we, the nations of the world, want it to be. If we can make contributions, it can be even more effective. Okay, now we come to the starting point of this particular subject. We always consider 1960. 1960 is the starting point. For anyone who wants to, quickly connect to the subject of environment. 1960 is important because that was the time when in the United States, there were four important people. One, John F. Kennedy. Second is Martin Luther King. Third is Ralph Nader. And the fourth one is the most important one connected to our subject directly, and that is Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson or Rachel Carson, because it's a proper noun, it depends upon the way it is pronounced. Okay, friends. John F. Kennedy, as you know, he stood for the liberal values and democratic values. He was more for a level playing ground between the blacks and the whites in the US, a Democrat to the core. Unfortunately, he was assassinated after 2 years of his presidency. He can be described as something like, a charismatic personality who captured the imagination of the world. That is one. The second important person, Martin Luther King, he was a Gandhian in America and trying to transform the polity of America, trying to make it a more level playing ground, right? Working on human rights and against discrimination of the Black Americans, and a wonderful civil rights activist. Unfortunately, he was also eliminated. But he was a great disciple and a follower of Mahatma Gandhi, and his lecture that was given, entitled, I Have a Dream, I Have a Dream. I followed the entire lecture umpteen number of times, and it is one of the finest lectures ever given by a heart which is 100% pure, uncontaminated, and willing the welfare of humanity. Therefore, Martin Luther King, I request all of you, I'm sure some of you may be connected, but request all of you to be connected. Then the third important person is Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader can be described, he contested twice for the American presidency as the Green Party candidate. But much more than that, one of the greatest law professors of the US. And today, if you just go into YouTube and follow his lectures given in Harvard, Yale University, and so on, he can be described as a pioneer, particularly when it comes to consumer rights, human rights, environment, and a great Democrat, He is described, his name is there in the top 100 people, in that group of exclusive 100, which includes all the presidents of, most of the presidents of America and every other thinker. And he is the one who has fashioned or ensured that America continues to be a democracy. Rachel Carson was an environmental biologist, and she has been passionately writing and publishing her articles, and very soon her name became synonymous with the beginnings of environmental knowledge, a knowledge which was breaking out, and her name was foremost. In fact, there was a time When New York Times, the world's biggest paper and the first paper, the oldest paper, they would wait for some more time in order to receive the article to be sent by Rachel Carson. Every day, New York Times, it reserved columns, adequate space so that the people, it was uppermost in the minds of the people that they should purchase New York Times and go through that particular article. She was their rage when we come to her contribution on the subject of environmental biology. I don't think any scientific writer received as much attention as she. Then subsequently she published a wonderful book, and that is the book which can be described as having launched environmentalism in the world. Here I wish to recognize, just as Das Capital Communist Manifesto, they were important. They are important, and when we want to understand Marxism, communism, yes, definitely those two books are very significant. But if we need to understand environmentalism, then this particular book, the most important book and the first book on the subject in modern times, is The Silent Spring. Now, what is this book about? I'm not going into the details, but one or two sentences. As the name indicates, the silent spring. The word spring here stands for the spring of life. The spring of life should be continuous. Rachel Carson was highlighting how wrong agricultural practices, particularly in her time, we have seen so many documentaries those days as a student. When in the American agriculture, that is food producing areas, plains, they would spray DDT. They would, the whole of the fields would be full of DDT powder. As if that is not sufficient, then they would spray some other poisonous chemical. And they thought that was the way. That kind of chemicalized agriculture was projected as a symbol of progress. Rachel Carson was a witness to the whole thing, and she connected how that poison was killing the insects and the worms, and how it was affecting the food chains and food webs, and ultimately how it was going to affect life. The word silent spring means the spring of life was, according to Rachel Carson, will come to an end. And she wanted to say life on the planet Earth, and that's why she published that important book. That book was serialized in the New York Times. And Rachel Carson was invited by John F. Kennedy to appear before the Senate Committee on Environment. And Rachel Carson, by then, her health had gone down. She was having multiple ailment problems, but in spite of a very frail personality, she appears before the Senate Committee and makes a presentation. And thanks to her contribution, and a large number of clean air, clean water enactments were enacted, including the very famous Environment Protection Authority. Americans, it's all because of her contribution, her book, and her passionate happy. Now we come to the next important date is 1970, friends. One senator by name Mr. Gaylords, he took the initiative, because by then what happened, because of that particular book and because of that wonderful new legislations which had come into being, Gaylord was, he thought he should also contribute to the subject, and therefore he said a day should be reserved for the planet Earth. Now what is the meaning? The meaning is that on that particular day, every Homo sapien, every person living maybe in different parts of the world, in different countries, yes, they all need to converge and think about the planet Earth, the status of environment, the damage that we have done to different ecosystems, and we also should come up with our strategies to protect. So he, after a lot of discussion, he agreed on a date known as April 22nd, 1970, and that date is now observed the world over as the Earth Day. Last year, it was the 50th anniversary of the Earth Day. Now, friends, this Earth Day was a runaway success. That is, it was so wonderfully organized with the help of two students from Harvard Law School that it became such a big success. And it is said on the very first Earth Day, more than 20 million citizens in all the continents, particularly in urban areas, in the cities of the world, 20 million citizens came forward and they demanded attention for the planet Earth. The next important date is, here we come to UN again. United Nations then, it thought it necessary that it also should do something for the protection of the planet Earth. And they decided to convene a global conference. And this was organized, the first conference, which is known as the United Nations Conference on Human Environment. And this was organized in Stockholm. I request all our industrialist friends, please connect to Stockholm Conference 1972. And because that is the first major attempt of the UN to bring the world together on this very important subject of environment and development and the role expected of the human beings. So this conference, Stockholm Conference, was, it gave a big boost to the subject and it placed environment on top of the agendas of the world. From India, our Prime Minister, Madam Gandhi, she was there in the conference and she gave the keynote address. And I'm not going into the details of the address, it is for everyone to check up. But when Madam Gandhi returned to India, she immediately appointed a parliamentary committee to go into the question of water pollution and the Prevention of Water Pollution Act, popularly known as the Water Act of 1974, was enacted. The parliamentary committee was initially headed by Mr. Mohan Daria and subsequently by Mr. Krishnakant. Both of them, those days, elders like Dr. Narayan Reddy Garu would know, they were known as the Young Turks. Yeah, a Turk is a person who is not afraid of anyone. A brilliant youngster who would speak from his heart. So Mohan Daria and Krishnakant, they were selected, and thanks to their great innovation and creativity, the Water Act came to be. And in 1976, pollution control boards were established, and that's how India was moving in the direction of protection of environment. 5 years later, that is in 1981, the Prevention of Air Pollution Act was enacted. The Prevention of Air Pollution Act, popularly known as the Air Act of 1981. And the task of implementing this Air Act, this also was given to the Pollution Control Board, which was already established in 1976. Okay, friends. Slowly, time was moving on. We come to 1984, December 2nd night, 3rd morning, and what happened in Bhopal, unfortunately, is, that was the world's, what we call horrendous tragedy, the worst industrial accident. It happened in India, in Bhopal. I'm not going into all the details because they are there for everyone to see, but within a span of 2 hours, it is estimated that 4,000 people died and about 300,000 people were affected in so many ways. I happened to visit Bhopal in the January of 1985 because I happened to, this subject attracted me immediately after Bhopal. And I could see the devastation from the industry to the Bhopal railway station. And who were the most affected? Naturally, the poorest of the poor, who are, who live in small little shanties, single story, touching the earth. And this particular gas which leaked out, being a very heavy gas, if had it been light, from whatever point it may have escaped, it would have simply risen up and entered the atmosphere, and probably it would have been diluted. But unfortunately, it was MIC, methyl isocyanate, for the heavy gas. It was moving, touching the earth, and all the people who were closest to the earth, they died. And even the passengers in Bhopal railway station, waiting to catch the morning train to different parts of the country, unfortunately, they also ended up. Now, I'm not going into why and how all those things are now very past. We have to rush into the subject. But suffice it to say that the 1984 Bhopal gas disaster, it created such a big political pressure that the party in power had to come up with a new legislation known as the Environment Protection, we call it as the EP Act, Environment Protection Act, 1986, under the leadership of Rajiv Gandhi. But then the act came into being, and the task of implementing EP Act also was given to the PCB. Now, as you know, friends, PCB means Pollution Control Board. EP Act, Environment Protection Act. The subject of environment is infinitely bigger than the topic pollution. After all, what is pollution? It is just a chapter in the book of environment. And PCB was totally unfit. It was not equipped to implement the Environment Protection Act. But then that's how we in India operate. And, as a result, many things have gone wrong after 1986 on the subject of environment. Now, after the Environment Protection Act became a reality in India, the Supreme Court of India started going to the rescue of the poorest of the poor, the displaced, the marginalized, the oppressed, the suppressed, in the name of environment, and also the pollution affected people. So that was the time when I had the opportunity to take up struggles in Saranagar, Nachar, Environmental, and myself and my friends, Dr. Kishan Rao, Professor Shivaji Rao, Subba Rao, so many, academicians, scientists, we were always trying to help the pollution affected people. Now the question is, Supreme Court started giving judgments, and they developed a mechanism known as the public interest litigation. Thanks to Justice Krishna Iyer. Justice Krishna Iyer is the father figure, but then Justice Bhagwati, Justice Kuldeep Singh, Justice Venkatacharya, Justice Jeevan Reddy, and so on. A large number of judges, they started going to the rescue of the people, or they stood for the protection of environment. Now, as a result of all of this, Supreme Court judgments can be classified into different categories. Number one, we call it as judgments based on the pollution, the polluter pays principle. Whoever is the polluter, the person is not important. Sometimes even the municipality, GHMC, or the state government, state organizations, it can be anyone. So whoever pollutes will have to pay. That is one. Secondly, Later on, Supreme Court judgments also said that the polluter will have to pay for the restoration of the damaged ecosystem. It happened in the case of Patancheru, and my friend Subba Rao many a times guided quite a few people on how to restore the damaged ecosystems. Okay, we go further. Now, what was happening at the global level? What was happening at the global level? We come after 1972. This part is very important for us to understand the status of the subject right now. Between 72 and 1983, or we can say a period of decade, a 10-year period, 1982, so much of literature was generated on this subject that in most of the universities in America, in Europe, and in other continents of the world, the academic community immediately connected to the emerging subject of environment, just as we did in India. And hundreds and thousands of articles were being published on a daily basis. This point is very important. So UN, the United Nations also was, of course it was happy, but then surprised because it lost sight of the emerging literature. So in order to understand what we call and also to review the emerging literature on this wonderful subject of environment, they appointed a commission. And this commission, friends, I request all of you to note, it is known as the World Commission on Environment and Development, WCED. కంపల్సరీ మీరందరూ దయచేసి దాన్ని డౌన్లోడ్ చేసి మీ ఆఫీస్ టేబుల్ పైన పెట్టుకోవాలి. దట్ ఈస్ ద మోస్ట్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ రిపోర్ట్. Now, fortunately for all of us, it has been published in the form of a book. And the name of the book is Our Common Future. So every industrialist, compulsory, because you need to compete with your age group and also with your contemporaries, industrialists of the world. Your competitors are global. You have to compete with the similar industry in UK, USA, anywhere in the world. And for that, Our Common Future, you have to read. Okay. Now, I am coming to that World Commission report. Okay, what is there in the report? That report is wonderful. The report itself is in two parts. The first part talks about the emerging global crisis, and the second part talks about how the state should go about addressing them. So the first part talks about, number one, the depletion of the ozone layer, global warming leading to climate change. Third is the loss of biodiversity, LOSS, loss of biodiversity, or the story of vanishing species. Fourth is expanding deserts or desertification or desertization, whatever way we may call it. And the last one is the danger posed by nuclear reactors and nuclear bombs. Now, friends, well, these are some of the major issues, but then there are problems organizing development. For example, organizing industrialization, organizing housing, building up cities, laying railway tracks or highways or building dams. Definitely, every country has to develop, but in the proper sense. So, how to organize development? That became the biggest challenge of the governments after 1983. Now, the second part enables the government to organize development scientifically and environment friendly and people friendly. So the second part of the report, it talks about the government of the day has to take into consideration the rising aspirations of the teeming millions. In any country, there would be millions of people, and everybody will expect some kind of an activity from the government, because definitely the government has to provide education, hospital, transportation, housing, and infinite security and all that. So how should the government go about? What should be the criteria? So here in every country, first of all, the government has to properly understand the ecosystems. Secondly, they should go in for proper planners. The entire country should be properly planned, land use, every other thing. And the people in the government have to appoint exclusive specialists. That is, people who have read books like Thomas, Ian McHugh, Designed by Nature. What a wonderful book. Design by Nature. I request every industrialist to purchase a copy and keep it on the office table, because that is the book which will be discussed for a very long time right now. So that is Ian, I-A-N, McHugh, M-C-H-A-R-G. Okay, friends. After doing this paid work, the government then, the government then has to come up with public policies. Now, public policies are, policy means law. Public policy means government laws. The government laws should take into consideration, the natural resources, the human resource, and the local geography, and so many other things, including technology, and then plan development accordingly. So this is the crux of the issue. So, for example, if we are talking about environment, it's a very important subject, and therefore not only the laws, but even how to implement the act. For example, in India, we are one of the few countries in the world. Naam ke vaste, even when I go to New York or Oxford or Cambridge, and when I give a lecture there, I will definitely speak very high of India and tell them, look, India is the world's largest democracy. All that is fine, but India also does not have Environment Protection Authority. Right now we are in 2021, and it's a matter of shame for all of us that we don't have EIA, and there is not a single political party which is committed to sustainable development goals or, any time demanding EIA in this country. Okay, now I am coming to the year 1992, where our conference of parties starts. This 1992, that particular conference, once again, the world met at Rio de Janeiro, exactly 20 years after Stockholm, and the world met in Rio to discuss and adopt the World Commission report. Now that particular conference, which was organized for about 8-9 days in Rio, it was officially known as UNCED, United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. And that particular conference was basically called to discuss and adopt the WCED report, World Commission on Environment and Development report. Now the nations which gathered there, because they are all the countries had a copy of the book more than 3 years before, and every country did their homework. They came there, they adopted the report, right? They adopted the report, and then they decided to act. My friend Subba Rao attended that particular conference, and United Nations Conference on Environment and Development adopted about 4 major resolutions. The first one was they adopted a framework convention to organize conferences on climate change. That particular thing is known as UNF, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. And it is under this aegis that conferences of parties are being organized worldwide, almost every year. The first conference was organized in 1995, and after that, every year. The third conference was in Japan, Kyoto, and Kyoto Protocol was the first major agreement between the nations on this very important subject. Unfortunately, Kyoto, which had some very interesting points, including, carbon trade and wonderful things were there. In fact, the business community of the world should have jumped at that particular thing, but unfortunately, America was not party to it, and quite a few other countries were not party. And therefore, that particular Kyoto Protocol, though it was good, it did not see the light of the day. Now we come to, after Kyoto, there are a series of conferences, there was not much progress, and Copenhagen was a disaster. And then we come to Paris. At Paris, there was something like a facade of success. For the first time, the nations of the world agreed, and that agreement was unanimous. And here, everything was kept open-ended. That is, there was no compulsion on any country, but every nation was expected to spell out how much they would reduce of the emissions that were emitting, that the nations were emitting in 2005. So Indian Prime Minister, he went there, he addressed on behalf of India, and he initially said that India would do its part, and he committed that India shall reduce 33% to begin with, but however, it will strive to reach 35% out of the total emissions of whatever India was emitting in 2005. And he also, joined the other countries to establish. When I say he, it is the Prime Minister of India. So the Prime Minister took the lead and established the International Solar Alliance. And, that's how India has been progressing on that particular subject. Like this, every country made promises. But the beauty of Paris Accord is because there was always this feeling that these nations who make tall commitments, they may not stand by their commitments. And therefore, every 5 years, this Paris Agreement comes for some kind of a review. So right now, this conference, the 26th Conference of Parties. Now, just for the purpose of understanding, why is it known as conference? Because under the aegis of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, in 1992 at Rio, two important registers were kept near the conference hall. One on climate change and the other was on biodiversity. So all the nations, they were told, the nations of the world were told that whichever country was interested in being a party to the discussion, here the party to the discussion, they can express their willingness by signing the register. So that's how all the countries which sign, they become parties to the conference. Now these conferences have been definitely yielding good results. But simultaneously, what we call the IPCC, Intergovernmental Committee on Climate Change, that has been doing 100% pure scientific work. And, the 6th report was recently released about 2-3 months ago. And that report has been titled as Code Red for Humanity. Code Red. That is, it's something like a red corner notice to the entire Homo sapiens that we are all living throughout the planet Earth. And that has been very clearly explained by the top scientists that humanity has already reached the critical level when it comes to global warming. Now, I request all the top industrialists who are here. I request all of them to please connect to IPCC report. That is one. Secondly, read the report. Read the report after in continuation, and also please connect to David Attenborough. David Attenborough is one person. He is about 97 years right now. He is alive, thank God. And he is doing greatest service to our Homo sapiens. And himself, he has been working right from the age of 20. That is, for nearly 77 years, David Attenborough has been relentlessly working on the wilderness areas of the world. And he has given a witness statement, which is there in the YouTube. I request all of you to please go through the YouTube and follow his witness statement. That is, then simultaneously, please also connect to Ralph Nader and his lectures given at Harvard. All this, plus your own concern for the coming generations. I request everybody, every friend of mine, that please always remember that we are not the last generation to live on this planet Earth. Like us to continue, we have an obligation towards the coming generations, and therefore we need to conduct our activity with a sense of responsibility. Therefore, friends, now I am coming to another topic, and that is, of course, connected to this and what is being discussed. What is being discussed, it's going to be discussed in Glasgow, Scotland. This time, the focus will also be on corporate social responsibility. I request all of you, Hyderabad industrialists, Telangana industrialists, you take the lead, and you can provide wonderful examples of corporate social responsibility. Now, what is this about? Unfortunately, in India, CSR has been reduced to charity. In fact, that was not the intention. The original CSR was not meant to be a charity. It was only meant to be that, see, a corporate social responsibility basically means that the corporates shall conduct their activity in a socially responsible way. It was not intended to be charity, but then unfortunately, political parties sitting in Delhi, they have given a twist, and everything else has gone in the wrong direction. Because of that action, the Indian industry lost a golden opportunity. Now, this has to be rectified. Please remember, friends, that industry in India has to compete with the rest of the world. You have no choice. The industry in America, in Europe, everywhere, they are all transforming. I request all of you to please read a chapter in the State of the World reports published by World Watch Institute, Washington. I think it may be 2003 or 2004 year. I had the opportunity of reading that particular report. And of course, I have read most of the reports, but that particular thing, there's a chapter by name Transforming Corporation. And that because, the industry needs to improve its image. There are 2-3 reasons. I'm not going into the details, but I would just mention them. Number one, see, there is what is known as a corporate image. That is one. Secondly, today's world, there is what is known as a shareholder pressure. I request all of you to note. The shareholders are free enough to take out their money from one company and put it in another. They are absolutely free. And they have this tendency of pulling out from companies which have a negative image. Now the point is, the knowledge about the subject of environment is now virtually global. It's not that we can't say that nobody knows that all those days are gone. It is part of the curriculum worldwide in all the schools, colleges, and all the youngsters. It is there in every competitive exam. In India, almost everybody below the age of 30, everybody knows the subject. Don't think that we need to promote awareness. Gone are those days. Today, the subject is rampant. It is there everywhere. Particularly, youngsters are catching up. Now, what happens as and how they grow? So, when they become investors, they are not going to put money in any company which has a negative impact. Therefore, the industry has to take the lead, improve its image, go in for technologies which will result in energy saving, go in for renewables, and be a leader. The industry should, Telangana industry should provide the roadmap when it comes to clean industry mechanism. Okay, friends, in Scotland, all these and many more things are going to come, but I wish to point out 2-3 points which are very, very critical. What happened in Paris is everybody's knowledge. The nations of the world that met at Paris, they made a commitment and they said, we'll try to limit the global warming to 2 degrees. That was the pledge. But then they also said, we will strive to ensure that global warming shall not exceed 1.5 degree, right? From 2005 level, okay. But then, that was a commitment made and the kind of political parties we have. I'm not talking about just India, I'm talking about the world. Everywhere it is the same. And these political parties they have not openly pledged in their manifestos that they are going to go in for clean development mechanism or environment friendly, all that sustainability, nothing. So at a time when the whole world is committed to sustainable development goals, and we are in the sixth year of the SDGs, and we are racing towards 2030. And the tragedy of India is that there is not a single political party which has made a pledge that it will implement or it will strive to realize the sustainable development goals. Okay, that is the that is the status of the political parties. Now, what are we doing as people, as knowledgeable people, as activists, as industry? We are also not pressurizing the political systems. So the challenge before Glasgow conference is, and last 2 days we are reading in the papers that the temperatures, the latest figure that is being given out is that the global average temperatures have increased by 1.12. Okay, 1.12, that is the increase. Now, with that much increase, already there is also chaos and confusion and destruction and devastation that we witnessed last 1 year. There have been fires in Canada, in USA, in Greece, and floods in Germany, fires in Australia, floods in Indian cities. My friend Subba Rao will give you much more information. Devastation. The low-lying areas on the coastlines of the world are being submerged. There is panic in the small island countries. Particularly, friends, the devastation will be faced more by the poorest of the poor. This is a very serious issue. All the low-lying areas, particularly for India, the crisis is going to be all the more serious. We are a very populous country. The density of population is very high in South Asia. If we take Bangladesh, India, it is the highest in the world. And if all the low-lying areas are lost, then where will Bangladeshis go? What happens to Maldives? What happens to the low-lying areas near Kakinada and other areas? It's a very serious issue. The middle classes, which played a very significant role in India's freedom struggle, and the advocates, they have to take the lead once again, and we all need to converge. I'm using my friend's quotation, convergence for sustainability. Yes, we all need to come together, converge to ensure sustainability in the spirit of a second freedom struggle. It's not just India, but the whole world. So the challenge at Glasgow will be definitely many of people like us, they are going to raise this issue with 1.12. If this is the state of situation, can't we think of lowering it to 1 degree? Why should we still continue with 1.5? What is so sacrosanct about it? So there are ways and means, definitely the present generation, for us, for most of us, there may be some small little difficulties. I understand. Maybe we'll have to do without air conditioners. There will be power breaks and shortages in the short run. But maybe 2 or 3 years we'll overcome that, because there are a lot of renewables. On one side, hydrogen is emerging. We can focus on solar, wind, geothermal, tidal, and new technologies. And where there is a will, there is a way. Let humanity take the big pledge. Certain difficulties, even assuming we face for the next 5 years, right? Assuming, is it not a better price that we pay than than the total annihilation? Should we continue with the contemporary practice of, burning heavy lot of electricity, fossil fuels? Can't we bypass them? At least we can make a broad thinking. And I do not know how much time I have taken, but there are a lot of issues after Subba Rao's presentation. I would like to be party to any discussion, any questions later. Thank you, Madam. So, Madam, please take over, and you can invite Subba Rao.
So thank you, sir, Professor Purushotham Reddy, sir. And now I request Mr. B.V.Subba Rao Garu, who is an eminent environmentalist, to please take over the session. Sir, you are on mute, sir.
Unmute cheyalana. Unmute.
Yeah, now you can, hope everybody can.
Yeah, it's audible.
I'm audible, and okay. Good evening to all the dignitaries participating in this webinar. And I congratulate the environment cell of the FTCCI. It's a long time that I could get back and reconnect myself with this particular cell. And since I have to get back by 5:40, 5:45, I request, if there are any specific questions, they may be raised right now. And the PowerPoint presentation I have prepared is, I don't think I will be able to show the entire thing. But most important thing is climate change and COP26. Why the business community, industrial community should know about it. How it connects with your profession, with your activities, and what is there for you as a stakeholder is a very important issue. One thing is, okay, the temperatures are increasing over a period of time, and this increase aggravated last 2 decades. Several reports came, and I thank Professor Purushotham Reddy Garu for easing my task, because he has simplified everything on the Paris Agreement as well as on the COP26, what could be the negotiations on it. Industry, how the industry should connect itself. I am a bit critical on the Chamber of Commerce and such associations all over the country and the India, because most of these associations, we have sector-wise associations, we have small-scale industries association, SASWIC, and all kinds of things, okay? But we come together, collectively bargain with the government for favors. As rightly pointed out by Professor Purushotham Reddy, in the industrial sector, I have not come across a leader who can lead. We have giants, industrial tycoons, making crores of rupees. But leading the industrial path is a tough task, challenging task, calls for commitment and dedication. Whatever I am speaking for next 5 minutes, I think elders like Sri Narayan Reddy Garu from Vircho and his contemporaries may be appreciating. It is not that industry never bothered about its role. In mid-70s, it was the quality circles which were introduced by Japan. And quality circles were introduced to improvise the production efficiency, management skills at the workshop level. After the quality circles, it moved to CTM in late 80s and early 90s. Clean technology, environment management. Many industries started looking into this, and some could take the advantage, some could not take the advantage, government policies. From CTM, we moved to voluntary declaration of the certifications like ISO 9000, ISO 9001, ISO 14000, and certification on safety, health, and environment. All these things were coming. What is lacking at the industry sector level is, we have very good industries which we are taking, and we have very bad, very worst industries. But what is lacking in India is, we do not have a collective management, environment management of industrial estates. Everybody is good, but the color water is coming out. Everybody is good, but foul smell is coming out. There are internal conflicts, there are internal competition between the industrialists to industry, not bothering about the environment and industrial ecological system. This is a very unfortunate thing that our industrial sector is. In fact, right in late 70s, the government was so eager to promote the economic growth, they created industrial estates without any infrastructure. Today, how the urban areas are facing without any civic infrastructure. There is no infrastructure for stormwater. There is no infrastructure for sewage water. This is the condition for all the industrial estates which were established from late 60s in Hyderabad and around Hyderabad. There was no dedicated space given for municipal waste or the industrial waste, and the layouts permitted do not have any such facility. So we totally lack a vision and a scientific temperament in planning the industrial estates. We may be good in promoting. And when you want to bring this entire climate change issues and the environment pins down to bringing efficiency in resources management. How do I cut the emissions? Means, how do I improve my energy efficiency? I have seen 70% of the industries which have the boilers, they were using the wood or the coal. I don't think that things have changed. It calls for government policies, proactive policies, and government should also influence the banking, financial institutions to come forward and extend support to the institutions which are transforming themselves into eco-industry. It demands certain amount of financial. These are all the things, where we need to debate. I think in 1996 or 97, when the environment cell was established in the then under the combined state Chamber of Commerce, I personally organized environment catalog exhibition under USAEP. And I thought it will move. There is a long way to go. We need to debate on this, why we need to have such debates, and how we connect ourselves with these growing challenges. Industry needs the resources, and resources have to be efficiently utilized. My friend G.B.K. Rao is also here, where he can, a person like him can provide a lot of knowledge on which kind of a plant can absorb more carbon, or which kind of a plant can absorb nitrogen in the air. Are we utilizing these bioengineering techniques to cut down the emissions or absorption or carbon sequestration? We need to look into many of these things. It's not merely, government is going and participating. I wish the FTCCI will invite the Minister of or the Principal Secretary Environment Telangana and have a debate on what is the climate action for Telangana state and how the industry can cooperate, complement with the government. I can share the report of Telangana government action report on climate change. I do not think that your library has this. Some outsourced agency prepares a report, even the government doesn't look into it. What is the use of it? Is it only for some, satisfy the central government or satisfy somebody's ego that we prepare a report hiring a consultant? We have to look into it. And what are the opportunities for the industry to participate? Quickly, I will show my PowerPoint presentation only to come out of the the monotonous lectures you are hearing. Can you make me the co-host, madam? Can you make me the co-host? I can show
Yes,
the
sir.
PPT.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hope you can see. Hope you can see the PPT.
Anna, yes, we can.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. So I'm just going quickly because of the time factor. The climate change, it's happening over a period of time, but we may or may not be able to contribute to take immediate results on mitigation. But certainly the industry can look into the adaptation techniques. What kind of an adaptation technique? At this stage, I suggest the chamber and the environment cell to establish automatic weather station either in Jidimetla industrial area, and I humbly request Narayan Reddy garu to come forward, and I can request the Indian Meteorological Department to establish an automatic weather station in your estate. Please, sir. And the same thing, I also extend the same request and proposal to GBK Rao garu in your estate if you are ready to do that. Okay, we will be able to monitor our own weather changing conditions. Second, who are the contributors? Industrial gases. And it's not only the industrial gases or any emissions from human activity. Even the municipal solid waste we are burning, and we are not questioning that part. That why we are releasing carbon, methane, and all kinds of toxic gases into it, including the dioxide. And the second thing, which takes the carbon absorption, carbon sinks, what we call, the forests are disappearing. At this moment, in my talk, quickly, I am suggesting certain things. Please think, I am putting before the industrialists, please come forward and support the urban forest, KBR park protection. You can help around the Hyderabad, the green cover protection and conservation. And this is the impact. We have tsunamis, we have the ice, snow, avalanches, and the droughts on the other side. Temperatures are rising. From Paris Agreement to COP26, the frequency and intensity of the natural disasters have increased. The climate-induced, right from Amirpet to America, you had the floods. Flood risk will continue, okay? And the impact is everywhere. Every aspect you look into it. And most important thing is the economic loss. The resources prices will go high. Resources will become scarce. Industry will not be able to operate it. So we need to bring efficiency in using the industrial operation. And the climate change and the impact, it does not recognize the geopolitical boundaries. The Himalayas, this star represents the Everest. The snow melting here will submerge the Bangladesh. And it can bring more Bangladesh under the climate restrictions. So you have to look into it. This is the city getting hotter 4 degrees. This was some 12 years back. This is the situation. How we can help in this? The natural disaster caused losses equal to 13.4 of GDP in developing countries. So we have to look very seriously on this. And this is the historical scene. Mumbai getting the floods, 2005, 37 inches. And today Hyderabad is getting 100 millimeters in 2 hours, 3 hours. So we are not. Paris Agreement is simple. Reduce the emissions from 35 and, temperatures restrict to 1.5 degrees. So it's not that easy as we say. And we do not have, any benchmark thing. The most important thing is developed countries have to shell down $100 billion. Are they giving this finance? And how do we use this finance? Are we gearing up that we come out with innovative technologies so that we will have better negotiations with these countries? Did the Telangana or Andhra Chamber of Commerce send one single letter that, look, we have an innovative strategy which can help in bringing at least 2% of the gas emissions from our industrial estates? It's a long way, sir. We are not thinking of it. We are still locked up in conventional things. How do we bargain for the taxes? How do we get the grants for the industrial? Help governments establish, implement nationally determined contributions. What are the nationally determined contributions? What is our carbon emission in Telangana state? Do we have a record of it? Did you ask the government? Call the principal secretary and talk to him. Climate ambition 2020. Status of global emissions after 5 years. Even today, the situation is the same, and everybody blames. Hello. There is some disturbance. Everybody blames it's because of the pandemic, but because of the pandemic, the air pollution is reduced, water pollution reduced. Okay, so we need to look into it. We need to look for. We are all engineers, scientists, technocrats. We should ask for measurable benchmark. What are the measurable benchmark the Telangana government established in its report? Can we have a debate inviting the Principal Secretary Environment, Telangana, and the Ministry for Industries? Let us have a discussion on this. The conventional, the processing industries are set aside. Today, government is running after the IT sector. IT sector is doing a service to multinational companies. It's not adding any production for this country. We have to raise our voice as technocrats and entrepreneurs and industrialists. We have to ask for our own stakes. Solar mission. Okay. Government of India came out with a lot of Bharat stage. All those things you can look into. Government of India finally came with National Action Plan. I request all the entrepreneurs, engineers, science, technologists who are attending this, look into this and see where you can participate. Demand your participation. Show your skills, core skills. The institutions have established it for this reason. Solar mission. Is there any provision for the Telangana industrialists on this solar mission? We only hear of, some big guys. Enhanced energy efficiency, sustainable habitat, water mission, recycling, Green India, sustainable agriculture, Green India, challenge and all. Some cine actor, planting 2 plants, everybody claps and takes a photograph is not done. Strategic knowledge on climate change. I suggest the Environment Cell of Chamber of Commerce to establish a data bank of the knowledge on climate change. How we can take, what are the conventional methods, what are the biological practices which can help in this, okay? So climate knowledge and other programs, energy efficiency, power generation, renewable energy. Today, I do not hear anything about the net cap. It became a dead institution in this state. Please look into it. We need to revive such institutions which were working on renewable energies. This is the village which partly I was involved. It's near Madanapalli, Chittoor. The entire village has 100% solar cookers. This could happen because of the students of Madanapalli Rishi Valley Education Mukti Foundation. Can you think of funding such projects around your villages, around your habitations in the industrial areas? I wonder, the industrial giants, I do not want to take the names, they say we are doing a lot of social philanthropy. We are working on midday meals. Who want you to work on midday meals? Work on energy efficiency, on resources management, technologies, okay? And, solar energy pumps, rainwater harvesting in a professional manner. Can we come out with recycling of the water professional? And I congratulate my friend Narayan Reddy Garu that he could do a lot of innovations in his industry, and we need. And also Baka Reddy Garu, JETL has contributed a lot. I think JETL boiler was with coal burning. I think it might have changed to solar. If not, please change it. Green India, okay. And then, we need to look into several other opportunities where we can contribute in cutting the emissions, improving the technologies, and education and training. How do we go and train the people? Think globally and act locally. Climate change threatens nature. Okay. And before I close my PPT, I would like to thank you so much. And okay, before I close, I have specific recommendations to Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Telangana State. Number one, please establish an action research center. 2, support students' internship. 3, encourage studies on industrial performances. The next generation should understand what is happening is the next generation, irrespective of their discipline, everybody is blindly running after the IT sector. Sir, G.B.K. Rao Garu, you should come forward encouraging the youngsters to step into botany, taxonomy, applied, taxonomy to control the air pollution, carbon emissions. We need to look into it. The younger generation is totally, misguided, confused, pushed into the darkness of IT sector. This is a second wave of slavery in this country. That was a physical colonialism, and today we are trapped under financial colonialism. So we have to come out, interdisciplinary things, connect to state, national, and global events. Please get the state government's climate change action report. Why we are not writing to them? Just creating environment cell is not good. Everybody was happy when I conducted technical catalog exhibition in 1996 in Chamber of Commerce. Everybody said, oh, we will do this, we will do that. What is that? I have not heard anything of that. Only last 3-4 years I am hearing this. Gallery of Industrial Innovations. Narayan Reddy Garu, I think you are here. Narayan Reddy Garu, Vicho. Okay. You see, most of the industries, JETL, including JETL and Vircho, they came out with a lot of innovations. Can you have a dedicated chamber displaying that what industry is contributing towards the environment? Can we come out with a newsletter on the contributions of the industries towards this? The recycling, restoration of the ecosystems. You need not go to rural areas. CSR, my friend, my guru Anna, Professor Purushotham Reddy, he was talking on the CSR. I attended 3 years back the CSR of IT sector. You know what was the decision they have taken sitting in Gachibowli? They said, we are not able to make any dent in Hyderabad. We will go to rural areas. Damage Hyderabad, you go to rural areas to get them named. Wherever you are damaging, you restore it back. Simply giving midday meals and clothes, cheddis and banyans is not CSR. Make the people to stand on their own, make the younger generation to think of their future, provide them the guidance in the industrial production. Today, Hyderabad was known for tools production. Where the tool industry has gone? Hyderabad was known for supply chain systems. Right from a galvanizing unit to BHEL, we had a supply chain system in Hyderabad. Today, what happened to the entire? It collapsed. We need to revive Hyderabad industrial sector. We need to green the supply chain of industries in Hyderabad. We have to come together, think about it. It's not, these associations are not formed to collectively beg before the governments. Governments have a moral responsibility to support. We have collectively government, industry, people, and the consumers have a collective responsibility to work towards the targets and the goals the country has committed at the global level. We need to look into it, sir. It's a long way to go. I may be emotional because it's 45 years. I'm working in this field, walking into industrial estates, suffered from hemoglobin because I was moving into 32 chemical industries in 1998. So who is looking into all this? We have to revive. It is not the IT sector which can be the backbone of this country. I certainly say, and I once again congratulate the Chamber of Commerce and Industry for conducting this. And I look forward for more frequent interactions on the proposals and the advisors. I don't say the advisors, but the recommendations I gave. And I am here to volunteer in developing these cells of student internship, setting up automatic weather station in any one of the industrial estates. Let us look into it. Let us join hands with scientific institutions. Let us create a path for the coming generations. And I thank Professor Purushotham Reddy for giving me this opportunity. And Narayan Reddy Garu, whose association is almost 34 years. We were all working. Baka Reddy Garu and JETL entire team. Thank you so much. And my friend Gadale is also here. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And anything you would like to clarify, because I have a meeting, a very important meeting from 6 o'clock. I have to leave by 5:45. Please, for any questions, queries, I am here for some time. And if I have hurt anybody, please don't feel otherwise. Yes, I have a reason to hurt. Because if I don't hurt people, if I don't provoke, things will not move. We are in a sleeping mood now. Even the computer goes in a sleep mode. So we have to wake up even the computer. And human beings are no different from computers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
sir, your recommendations are well noted, sir. We will take it forward. And
I look forward for some kind of a response on it.
Yes,
When
sir.
you have forward, who has responded? Because my association with the Chamber of Commerce is also 28 years. I think I deserve to track that. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Society cannot have white elephant institutions. I'm very blunt on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And here we'll be just closing the sessions, and it's like my privilege to propose my hearty vote of thanks on behalf of all and on behalf of the Federation. My sincere thanks to Professor K. Purushotham Reddy, environmentalist, professor at Usmania University, and Mr. B.V.Subba Rao, sir, eminent environmentalist, for enlightening us on the forthcoming 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties. And I also thank members of FTCCI and members of Expert Committee, Environment Committee members, and informed audience for their active participation. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.